It's down. You guys are done, right?
Yes.
And Kristy gets ready. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. You've probably heard this before if you've ever been around a church or even a Christian circle. God will not give you more than you can bear. Is that right? Have you heard it? You've heard it. Is it true? No, it's not true. It's one of those things we just made up out of the scriptures. You know, the truth is God will not give you more than you can bear once you're in Christ and you're holding on. But He will often give us more than we can bear in an effort to draw us toward Him. And He will allow evil and Satan to do work. I know we don't like that, but it's true. Amen. He will allow it to drive us to our knees. Are there any sinners in the house today? Yeah, I could lift both hands, but I got Mike in one. This is the deal. I mean, I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor for a couple decades. I don't like a couple things about church, and one of them is that people fake everything. And it's not compelling. What's compelling is the gritty, honest, down, deep, emotions and stuff that we feel as humans who screw stuff up. And then we know there's only one place to go. I have a verse for you today. Jesus was, walking around and teaching and talking, and one day he runs into this guy who was a horrible, horrible person. In fact, he was Jewish, but he was working for the Roman government. And what they would do is they'd be tax collectors. But that's not bad enough. Everyone loves tax collectors, right? Right. So what they were doing is he's a Jew working for the Romans, so that was bad enough. But then what the tax collectors were well known for is basically ripping people off. And so the Roman government needs, half of your money, and then they would take, what their portion is. And so they were super wealthy. But one day Jesus runs into one of these guys. His name is Levi. After this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector by the name of Levi sitting at his tax booth. "Follow me," Jesus said to him. And Levi got up and left everything and followed him. That's typical of anybody who decided to follow Jesus. And said, "You know what? I'm done." And he walked away with him. It said, then Levi held a great banquet for Jesus at his house, and a large crowd of tax collectors and others were eating with him. But when the Pharisees, that's these super religious teachers of the law, and the teachers of the law who belonged to their sect, complained to his disciples, "Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" And Jesus heard them, and he said this, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." Amen. That's why I'm a pastor today. Because He called me out of the nastiest, craziest stuff you've ever heard of and put a new song in my mouth. Kristy and maybe even Ben today are going to share. Kristy, come on. You want to use this mic? Sure. Okay, I'll let you use it.
Thank you.
Welcome,
I
Kristy.
appreciate it.
Hi guys.
Howdy.
See, I have a voice after that, right? Oh my. Why did I know that was going to happen? Thank you. You know what? I feel like, ooh. Okay, guys. What's up? All right. This is awesome. I love it. I'm not used to speaking, so please bear with me. But I do have a story to tell you guys. I've been through a little bit in my life, and I just want to share some. I'm not going to just talk about one thing, because I think that would just kind of cheat you guys. God has been so good to me through my whole life. So I'm just going to start. I guess I'll start when I was like 3. I feel like, you remember that Goonies movie? He starts telling his life story. He's like, "Oh, Terry knows." So when I was 3, so honestly, when I was about 3, my house was awesome. I have an amazing mom and dad. Especially now. Back then there was a little strife in the home. There was some physical abuse, which we're all healed now, so don't feel bad. There was a little mental abuse, a lot. But what I'm going to share with you today is some stuff that started happening at 3, and we're going to talk about some sexual abuse at first. Let me start off with saying that from a young age, God gave me a heart for Him. I can't remember not having a heart for Him. And I think the devil really did not like that. He hated it. He was scared. So he sent, when I was about 3, some sexual abuse started. And I remember the first time it happened, the guy brought me down into our basement. Just going to get right into it. And he started telling me, this is going to get a little graphic, and I'm sorry about it, but he was talking, and he was like, do you know what, have you ever heard of screwing? I was like, well, yeah. And I remember in my 3-4-year-old head thinking of a red screwdriver. I'm like, I know how to screw, I live on a farm. He's like, no, not really that kind of screwing. I'm like, okay, I'm 3-4, I don't have any clue what he's talking about. So he starts talking, telling me what sex is. And I'm like, as a 4-year-old, I have no clue. I just knew that this was like, didn't feel right. And I was just like, I don't remember how I said no, but he didn't like that I said no. And he must have known that I love the Lord, because he said, if you don't do this with me, the angels will kill you. So I remember thinking, oh my God, the angels will kill me? So of course, I'm like, okay, let's do this. So he takes me around the pool table and has his way with me. I'm like 3-4. I remember it was pretty painful, pretty awful. And for a long time, I didn't, and this went on until I was 11, 12, nonstop, constantly. And I won't go into too much detail. But that one, the first time it happened by the pool table, later on in therapy, God, I always wondered, God, why would you let this happen to me? Like, I love you, I'm a good kid. Were you not there? Did you not see? I mean, what was going on? And later on, God did reveal that he was there, but he can't really take away people's free will. But he showed me a vision of him, and while this was happening, he showed me a vision which really healed me. And if you've been through sexual abuse or anything like this, he was there. But he showed me a vision of him. He was on his face crying for me. He was watching it happen, but he was crying. He was just like, what? He didn't want it to happen, but he was interceding to the Father for me. Like, keep her, keep her, keep her. And when he got done praying for me, in my vision, he came over while this was happening. He was just loving on me. And like I saw in the vision that these demonic forces were trying to kind of attach themselves. Because when you have a spirit like that, things try to attach themselves to you early. And God showed me that he was just pulling them off of me, just ripping those demons, whatever was trying to attach to me. So even at that young age, he was enough. It didn't seem like it for a long time. I questioned for so long, but when he gave me that vision, he was there. And in these hard, dark times, he is there. He is interceding for you. And he will keep you through it. That could have messed me up. All this sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse could have messed me up. But he kept me. He kept me so much. So childhood was super hard. The sexual abuse kept on going. Physical abuse, mental abuse. And scriptures like this, even as a kid, I read the Bible every night because it was the only peace I could find. I was happy, but there was a peace that only God could bring in that turmoil and that fear, just the inconsistency, the never knowing what each day would bring or whatever. So scriptures like this, Philippians 4:6, be careful for nothing, which means don't be anxious. And back then I was anxious because I never knew what was going to happen. But in everything, in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and mind through Christ Jesus. And those type of scriptures really kept me back then. And so the sexual abuse kept going on. I won't go into details. I could go on all day because it was rough. There was a lot of stuff. So when I got maybe like teenager, I was always into sports, but God gave me an outlet to get into sports. And I was really good, believe it or not, being short and overweight now. But I was a pretty good athlete back then. And that was my outlet at first, to be away and like just actually do something. But then like all this pressure from coaches, they just like were just mean to me. I always had to be better than everybody at everything. So like at home, it was pressure. Sexual pressure, school pressure, sports pressure, but God still. He was just enough. He was enough. Through my whole childhood. I remember I had insomnia because I just always thought something was going to happen. So I would have scriptures like this. Psalms 4:8, I will lie down and sleep, for you, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. That was a big scripture that I think I found that at 5. And that has been with me ever since. So anyways, the sexual abuse, through school, all the pressure and all that. And I got through school, I didn't drink, didn't cuss, didn't smoke, didn't do all that. I stayed faithful to God and whatever. And He kept me through all that, and it was rough. But we'll move on to after school. Because, again, if I went on through my childhood, that would go for a while. So I had been offered to play basketball at Miami or be in youth ministry. And since my heart was so for God, I really wanted to be in youth ministry. Got in youth ministry, God used me, and I was happy at this point. I was a young adult, doing my thing. I kind of, the sexual abuse kept on to like 11 or 12, so I kind of just pushed that down. Just kind of like, it was still there, but I pushed it away and just pretended like it never happened and all this stuff. Doing youth ministry, and I met someone during youth ministry when I was like maybe 22 or whatever, and this guy was amazing, and just anointed guy, and I thought, boy, this guy's awesome. And I'm making this quick, but So I met this guy, we ended up getting married. He was like, back then, love of my life. I was finally safe. Finally had someone that took care of me like a princess. I mean, this guy was amazing. He was in ministry, loved the Lord. We ended up doing, being youth ministers at Solid Church for several years. We did prison ministry, just every minute, street ministry, everything you could do. So I was living what I wanted. Ministry, full-time, married, happy. I mean, all my past, I didn't even care about it anymore. Even though it still hurt and it was in there, it was like I was masking it with ministry, just masking it. But anyway, so we did youth ministry, did great things. I was totally in love, totally secure, totally happy. Had all the plans in the world. So we got picked to go to Brazil. Moved to Sao Paulo, Brazil. We started 3 orphanages, and that was amazing. We had about 150 kids at the end that were off the streets. Awesome ministry, God using us still. But then one day, my ex-husband, he just kind of started acting a little weird. And I couldn't figure it out, what was going on. He was just not the same person. Just all of a sudden, like out of the blue. From like perfect husband to like, who is this person? And I just was praying. It was just weird. I thought maybe it was just part of ministry, just kind of getting to him, maybe getting overwhelmed or whatever. But anyways, JoJo had to have some sort of surgery, so I went home to the States for like a month. Came back. The ex was still being weird. And I'm like, what the heck? So all of a sudden he just comes to me, and I'm again making this so quick. Comes to me, he's just like, I'm gonna need you to just leave Brazil. This was out of the blue. I had no clue this was coming. And I'm like, what? I mean, I know you're struggling, but I mean, why are you sending me home? He would not give me an answer. I was confused, I was hurt. He put me on the plane on our 7th or 8th year anniversary. On my anniversary, he puts me on the plane, sends me home. What's funny is when we get on the plane doesn't work. So I'm thinking, oh, God's going to restore the marriage. I'm going back. I'm not leaving Brazil. He made the plane not work, so it's all going to be great. So I'm like, yes. So we're staying in Brazil. Call the ex. He's like, mad that we're still there. He's just like, you're still here. This is the guy that was my security. This guy he was everything. Maybe I put him too much before God even. So anyways, I'm thinking, God, it's a miracle. So I call him, he comes, picks me up. He's just mad the whole time at home, waiting for the plane. I've got a 3.5-year-old at this point. So we ended up going home, and that was rough. Still did not have any clue what was going on while I was sent home. I knew my world was just like falling apart just out of the blue. Like 3 days later, he called me. He's like, babe, I want to come home. He's like, he ended up getting drugged in Sao Paulo at a bar, and ended up on the street, pooped and peed himself. This is like 3 days after I left. So he's like, oh, okay, God's like trying to wake me up or whatever. And so he calls, he comes home. And before he came home, he admitted that he had been cheating on me. I didn't realize how in depth it was. I just thought maybe he cheated, he had been felt guilty. Well, obviously he started having a relationship with this woman for months, and I had no clue. I mean, I don't know if I was just young, naive, didn't see the signs, but I had no clue. But he comes home, and I'm like, okay, God's going to restore the marriage. He's going to do all this, and just still having faith. Still, forgive you. Because I was just so insecure from all the things that I've been through. I didn't have any real self-worth, I was just like, oh, he cheats on me, that's okay. I just come back, please, because I'm not going to be anybody else. I'm not good enough, or whatever. So anyways, he comes to the States. Well, the girl he had been cheated on faked a pregnancy, did all that fun stuff. Brazilians, all traumatic. Faked a pregnancy, I didn't know that. But, so she kind of kept him in with that, He didn't tell me any of this. And all the while I was thinking that we were reconciling. He's being all nice to me, oh, we'll do ministry again, we'll do this, I'm so sorry, you're the best thing ever, and all this. And so we started doing pretty good again, and we got offered a youth pastor job at AHOP. And everything was going good again. I was kind of secure again, putting my security in a man, which was my mistake in the first place. But, I'm thinking, okay, youth ministry again, we're starting again, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden, he starts changing again. And it's just like, I'm going to bring her, I'm going to go be with her, I'm going to leave you and Joe here in the States. She needs me more than you guys. I was like, okay. So at this point, I had no job because I was full-time ministry. Had no husband because he left. Was stuck alone with a child that I just learned had Tourette's syndrome and ADHD. So I'm dealing with this. That alone is hard. And I'm alone dealing with this. My parents were there. They were amazing through the whole thing. They were. But I was just broken. I didn't know if I was going to do ministry ever again. I thought it was all done. I thought everything was done. My dreams were broken and all that. And I just looked towards God. And I remember I was so broken, and I just remember being in this little apartment we had when we came back to the States, and I just remember laying on the ground, being like, God, what now? Everything is gone. The love of my life, my ministry, everything I ever wanted. And I still have all these scars that I had from, I was just a broken person. And I remember God would just hold me. Bring up Psalms 91. I was always prophesied over the Psalms 91, and this is one of my favorite scriptures, and this is really what has gotten me through pretty much most of the things that in my adulthood. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. This means a lot to me because he's been this for me. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly noisome pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. Faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. And I want to stop right there. I remember I would just be have you been just so broken that all you can do is just weep? And I remember my daddy, I would read this, and I would feel like I was in the shadow of His wings. He would just hold me. He would hold me so close, and I felt it when I was so broken. Sorry, guys. I'm telling you, the peace that I found in that shelter, that refuge that really does exist. If you're hurting so bad, just read Psalms 91 and see if it won't meet you where you're at. See if He won't just cover you in His feathers and just keep you, because that's what He did. Anyways, it took a while, but He healed me and totally restored me from that marriage. And started back up in ministry and was using me greatly, and it was awesome. I loved it, but and I actually wanted to be single at that point. I was like, I'm never getting married again, because men have been nothing but pretty much terrible. Except my dad was great for me. But anyways, I got through all that. It was rough, and again, got through Scott, and 1 week later, I meet this guy. That guy. No, I'm kidding. And at first, I was just like not interested at all, because I was independent at that point doing ministry. Why do I need a man? Like, I got Jesus, right? Man. Anyway, we love you. Anyways, through all that, I did get healed from some things, but there was a lot of things I still had. And when we met, we started talking, I even told him, look, I got this sexual abuse, I got this physical, mental stuff that, it was really bad through my whole childhood. And God did keep me, but it was still, I pushed it down. I faked faces so much. Like, I always loved the Lord, but as far as like being around people and this and that, they would have never known what I had been through. Because even in high school, no one would have ever known I was going home to again, I don't want to go into all that, but where was I at? So he came along and we started talking, told him that I was kind of a mess, and he still married me, which was pretty cool. And he, come to find out, he was a little bit of a mess too. A little bit. We're all a mess. So, but we got married and we love each other, but we each other. Like, he had a little bit of anger, which triggered I don't know who was triggering who, honestly. But it's like some of his anger and impatience was kind of like what I grew up with. I got kind of triggered from that, and then I ended up having to have a hysterectomy, which was one of the things that was really horrible for me, because I always wanted to have another kid. I always said growing up, the worst thing that could ever happen to me is for me to have a hysterectomy. Like, that was my worst fear growing up. When I had to have that was just kind of that was what broke the camel's back. And then, menopause comes, and then I've got all this unresolved stuff, and all these hormones, in a new marriage. And it was rough, but then we got through it, and went through therapy, and God really helped me through a lot. But through all this, He was enough. He was definitely enough. Through all the mental, physical, sexual, cheating, everything, He was enough, especially with the scriptures. But thank God, now got a good marriage, ministry. I'm here. He was enough. Maybe, did you want to talk? Well, no.
Come on.
You're not allowed to say from this week. But yeah, that was enough for me. And I appreciate you guys listening. Just talk about it.
Hey. Hi. I get to stand on this too. I kind of like this. I back up a little bit before our marriage. I don't want to get into this last week. That'll be another time. I'll need the whole time. She kind of. But it was so in 2010. In June I lost my mother. In July I lost the family dog of 13 years, which it's an animal. It was part of the family. In August, I got separated and lost my grandmother. So it was, people are like, oh, how in the world, how'd you get through it? And I tell them, it's the best year of my life. Because 4 days before my mother passed unexpectedly, I was up all night doing drugs. And God had been pulling at me for years. It's not that I never believed, I just didn't follow. And I was up all night, and finally I was like, God, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I texted my mom and my dad, and I said, I'm coming back. I'm coming back to the church. I'm coming back to Christ. I'm giving my heart back. And little did I know that all those events were going to transpire after that, but he knew. He knew it, and I'd said before that, gosh, if anything ever happened to my mom or dad, I'd probably just drink myself to death. And he wasn't going to allow that to happen, because there's a calling on my life, and there's a calling on every one of your lives. And it's for the kingdom of heaven, and it's for the glory of God. So, yeah, I was a self-proclaimed bachelor, moved back to Ohio. I was living in Georgia at the time, moved back to Ohio, moved in with Dad. It was one of the greatest times, having a fresh heart, being a new creature. And it was a process. It doesn't mean that I didn't slip up, but it was still being around my dad's presence and him being a godly man. And I mean, we were just all of a sudden, we were both bachelors and just loving life. And I'm like, this is great. I am going to stay a bachelor forever. So, the end of 2011 comes around, and my sister's like, hey, we're going to go meet some of my friends for lunch. I'm like, okay, well, Kristy was part of the group. And I was like, wow, she's kind of pretty. And I was like, wow, I kind of like her. And then we did the same thing next week. I went out with my sister, and we had lunch, and we all hung out. And for some reason, the thing was to go to Target and hang out. I don't know what that was about, but so we'd hang out, and that was New Year's 2012. And New Year's Day 2012, I told my pastor, I was like, I've never done anything halfway in my life. I've always been extreme one way or another. I was like, I'm going all in. I'm going all in. And then things just started transpiring. I went on an Emmaus walk. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but it was a nice spiritual walk. And then I took eight weeks off and remodeled the church that we were moving into. And then I went to Honduras. And mind you, the first week of January was the last time that we'd seen each other. And I just pushed it down. My heart started churning, and you know that flutter bug. And so I just pushed it down, and I'm like, no, and I even got mad at my sister. I'm like, what are you doing? You're ruining everything. Why did you introduce me to her? I can't sleep. What? You're ruining everything. I was like, and my joke was that the biggest stress that I had in my life at the time was where to eat next, and I was all right with that. So I get back from Honduras, and the day that I get back, and this is in May, so 5 months had gone by, and we'd had no contact. And 5 months had gone by, and my sister texted me it was May 11th, and my sister texted me and said, hey, Kristy wants to text you. Now, mind you, she's never had to pursue a man in her entire life, so this was completely out of character for her.
I was peer pressured.
God pressured. So I'm like, sure. She texted me, and it was over. It was over. So we set up our first date on May 15th, and that morning I got up and God said, she's the one. Excuse me? She's the one. I'm like, all right, well, let's do this. So long story short, 6 months to the day, we got married on 11/11. And because I tricked her into coming to church because my family are all veterans. So I was like, hey, why don't you come to church? It's Veterans Day, and they're going to honor everyone in the sanctuary, and most of my family will be up there. And she's like, okay. So she came with me, and I proposed to her after service, and we never left the building. And we got married 2 hours later. But yeah, like she said.
I didn't tell him I had my
I'm sorry? Oh yeah, I planned the whole thing. Planned the whole thing.
He had a makeup artist.
Had makeup.
Everything.
hairdresser, had her dress already, had the ring, had her best friend sing, flew people in, and yeah, I had it all set up because God told me she's the one. So I'm like, all right, I guess you know what you're talking about. So yeah, like she said, it was a new marriage, and I was a new creature. So I was learning how to be a man of God. I was learning how to be a husband, a real husband, not one that's in the bars every night. I was learning how to be a dad. I never wanted to be a dad, and it was a lot. And I had a lot of anger for various reasons. And like she said, it was just it was kind of turmoil. But He's enough. He got us through it. And just this past year, earlier in the year, God delivered me of the anger because I desired for Him so much. My hunger for Him was so much, and I just wanted to do my job so bad that I created a capacity for Him to come in. And when you just fill your life with Him and fill your heart with Him, all that other stuff, there's no room for it. There's just no room. So I just encourage everyone to just long for Him and desire for Him, and just ask God to bring to the surface what it is in your mind and in your heart that's got to go, so that He can replace that. And like she said, I just got back from London Monday and had an amazing encounter with God, and I will never ever be the same. And I just hunger for Him, and I want to impart that hunger on everyone else, and I just want you to all just to strive for Him. Everything that's going on in the world is all distractions, and that just gets our eyes off of Him. So we just need to focus, and it takes being intentional, it takes discipline, but we can all do it because He's enough. So I want to invite everyone to come forward that would like any prayer. If you don't have any turmoil, if you're not fought every day, if you're completely free and you have no physical issues, no mental issues, no heart issues, you're more than welcome to leave. But anyone else, I encourage you to come forward, and myself, and pastor, and the elders of the church want to lay hands on you, and we want to touch you, and we want God, I want you to feel His love for you, and how you guys are so valuable. Amen. You guys are so valuable. If you ever question how valuable you are, look at the cross. Amen. That is your value. He did that for every single one of you guys. And if you feel guilt, and you feel shame, and you feel condemnation, that is Satan manifesting his own feelings onto you, because he is condemned. There's absolutely no forgiveness for him. That he has no chance. So all those feelings that you are less than, that's him. And you just rebuke him, push your flesh down, and just rise up. Crucify your flesh every morning and just rise up in him. And he will, oh my gosh, you'll be amazed at the transformation that he does in your heart, and the renewing that he does in your mind. So at this time, if you feel led, come forward. I just speak of boldness and courage over everyone, and just to block out distractions. Don't worry about the person next to you. Amen. Just focus on him, and you'll be amazed.